Hi everyone, welcome to Everything Dog Training Podcast with me, John McGuigan, Glasgow dog trainer and behaviour consultant. So this should be published on the 19th of July 2024. So whenever you're listening to this, I hope you're having the best day that you can. Or if you're not having the best day, I hope this makes it a little bit better. And just breathe. Life can be challenging sometimes, and sometimes we need an escape from things. So as usual, just want to thank you for joining us again. If it's your first time, welcome. There's another 19 previous episodes for you to listen to, and if you're coming back to listen to me again, welcome back. I just wanted to express my gratitude again. There's lots of content you can listen to, especially with podcasts, both dog training related and not, and the fact that you're choosing to listen to me for the next 20 to 40 minutes, which hopefully that's what I'll keep it towards. It is much appreciated. So that's the question today on Facebook. If you go back in time, what's the one crucial thing you wish you'd known when you first brought your first dog into your life? Okay, so a couple of firsts there. I went first, and I says that you don't need to use aversive training methods, and you don't need to say no in order to teach your dog. Alright, so I'll talk a bit more about saying no and what no means in future episodes. I usually just like to plant that seed with people, especially if you're kind of new to dog training. It's so natural for us to say no. We say no a lot of the time. No, stop doing that, stop doing this. It always reminds me of Peter Kay. So for those of you that don't know him, if you're listening out with the UK, he's got lots of funny videos on YouTube. So Peter's about the same age as me, grew up in the 80s, and he talks about the dinner ladies at school. So the dinner ladies would be these women who ran the dinner school, the dining room at school, but they would act as the school monitors, the playground monitors, when he was at primary school, which is elementary school, so between 5 and 12 years old. And he would always say they would run after the kids or chase after them, saying stop that, stop doing that, stop getting that, get down from there, no, stop that, stop running. And I always kind of think that's like kind of stop breathing, stop feeling, stop living, okay, stop behaving entirely, stop having thoughts, okay, that's kind of where it goes. And I know I'm being a little bit facetious there, but we'll talk about no in another podcast. Just before we move on, what has been interesting, it's always interesting, is my love-hate relationship with social media. So if it wasn't for social media, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. So in and of itself, podcasting is social media. Okay, it gives me a chance to reach you directly, where 30 years ago I would never have been able to do that. You probably know about me because you've seen me through some of my other channels, so either YouTube, Facebook or Instagram. If you don't follow me on socials, I've got tons of training and behaviour advice, me working with my clients and their dogs, some video blogs where I do kind of shorter form content like I'm doing here, where I just talk to the camera about something that's on my mind regarding dog training, and a few other things, some written blurbs and stuff like that. So please follow me there if you don't. Excuse me a second. Apologies, and I would ordinarily edit that out. However, every time I pause that, the recording goes back to the start, and I need to work out how to use the recording device better so I don't have these coughs in it. As you can hear, I'm still suffering from this cold that I've got, just the tail end of it. But I'll do as best to get on as I can. So I'd put this post up this morning, and I'd asked this question. Now, what happens when you post stuff? I think we're losing. Sorry, hang on. I'll rephrase that. Some of us, some elements of society, are sometimes, in some circumstances, losing the element to think critically and make critical analysis of things. So I put a video up last week, short video, and it was of the initial assessment of me working through this, the very first time that we actually did some training with this dog. Okay, and I was generally, what I'll do when I put a video up is I will put a learning point up, and I try and cover that one learning point. Now what happens is that you then get into people turning around saying, well, what about this and what about that, and you haven't mentioned this and you haven't mentioned that. Now, for me to do that, I would be on my computer all day long, or on my computer or on my phone all day long, in order either countering those questions or putting in a massive preamble in order to make sure those questions don't come up in the first place. I get more things to be doing with my time, and I'm sure you do as well, than this constant nitpicking over things, rather than just saying, oh, that's an interesting learning point there. Okay, so that's what I try and do. Now, having said that, right, one of the answers that came up in this question today was the benefit of crate. The answer was, I wish I'd have known the benefit of crates for anxious dogs. Okay, now that's pithy and succinct. However, somebody reading that for the first time, coming onto my page, and they read that from the first time, they might read that and go, oh, I've got an anxious dog, I'll use a crate. And without any nuance there, it's too open to generalisation. Okay, it's too open to interpretation, and I countered it. I countered it with this person. Very quickly the discussion went it went south pretty quickly, and it went south pretty quickly because of my history with this person. Alright, somebody that I know vaguely from somewhere else, and who has got lots of interesting things to say. Now, but we don't agree on everything all the time, and because I shut this person down and said, well, I didn't actually shut the person down, I said, can we expand a little bit on that? And the point I made was, if somebody reads that, they might misinterpret it. Now, this person came back to me and said, it's not up to me to make sure that other people aren't misinterpreting what I say. Now, on my page, it absolutely is. Well, it's on me to make sure that other people don't misinterpret what I say, which is why I had countered it. Now, we have a responsibility when educating others, or when giving our opinions. If somebody with less education than we do takes that and just says, oh, that's what you do then. Okay, you just do that, and it's as simple as that. And unfortunately, it's not as simple as that. So it happens fairly regularly. Okay, and in order for me to keep this content, so the point of this was my love-hate relationship with social media. If I hadn't put that post up today and taken the hits, which I've just explained to you, I wouldn't have all the answers, so all the responses. So there's been 160 odd comments so far on that thread, and it's been interesting. Okay, so I'm going to share some of those with you today. Okay, which is so just a little bit of a kind of preamble there. I use that word a lot, preamble, but it's I'm trying to think another word to use. Okay, right. So somebody's come up and said, I wish I'd known about proper socialisation and not taken mine to daycare. We've spent a while getting him unobsessed with dogs and obsessed instead with his breed-specific job, which seems to be helping. He can greet other dogs calmly and not have to play, and can ignore dogs. Okay, so that's a good comment. Okay, now just on that, unobsessed with other dogs is awesome. Okay, I would change that word obsessed instead with breed-specific job, which seems to be helping. I wouldn't use the word obsessed there. I would say moving in towards breed-specific jobs. Okay, so say for talking sake, that's a retriever. Getting the dog retrieving stationary objects. Okay, border collie, getting the dog playing football rather than chase. Okay, but not obsessive. Not obsessive over it, because we don't want our dogs to be obsessive from one thing to the next. Okay, now proper socialisation. This came up a lot in this thread, or when I posted this. We are told to socialise our dogs. Okay, so we're told to socialise our dogs and socialise our puppies, and that's valid. It's extremely valid. Okay, and proper socialisation of puppies is absolutely crucial for your dog to have a good life. Improperly socialised puppies, we basically kick the can down the road, and we end up having to pick that up later on and deal with it. And that's the bulk of I wouldn't say the bulk. A significant proportion of my work is poorly socialised dogs. Now, poorly socialised can mean over-socialised as well. So it's very similar. I always think it's similar to that phrase that used to come up in probably in the 80s and 90s when the government were trying to get us to the government were trying to get us to lead healthier lives, and it was eat right and exercise. Okay, so that was the advice: eat right and exercise. Now, there's no valuable information there. That's a concept. That's an overall umbrella of this is what you do for a better life. You eat right and exercise. Now, that's absolutely true. However, what is exercise? How much exercise do we do? What type of exercise do we do? Okay, so some people might not even know what exercise is, or might not know the difference between resistance training, okay, making your muscles stronger. So that's, you know, basically pushing or pulling against something which is gravity is trying to move away from you. Okay, so pulling an item off the floor, okay, or pushing something away from you. Okay, so a pull up or a chin up, so pulling yourself up on a bar, or doing a press up. Those are the push pull ones. Okay, so that's resistance exercise. So they might not know the difference between resistance training and cardiovascular training, which is getting your heart rate up and your lungs working. Okay, so that would be like running, swimming, cycling, dancing, aerobics and things like that. Okay, so without that detail, how do we know? Hopefully the microphone didn't pick that up. I'm going to close the window. Loud motorbike past my window. Good idea to prepare your environment before you start work, isn't it? Okay, so difference between resistance training, cardiovascular exercise, stretching, okay, and mobility work, and the amount of rest that you need. So those are just, now we've got 4 or 5 different categories, okay, and then we can further expand that. Okay, so you see how that eat right and exercise starts as an overall concept, starts branching off. Same as with socialisation. How do we socialise our dog? Where and when and how often? Okay, so lots of people think that we've got these checklists: men with beards and hats, high-vis jackets, children, scooters, motorbikes, push bikes, buggies or strollers if you're in the US, you call them. What else? Cars, vans, lorries, bin lorries, refuse trucks, trash truck, whatever you call them. Okay, sanitary collection. Okay, the bin men, police cars, sirens, ambulances, and on and on and on. Pneumatic drills, blah 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 blah. Okay, so all the things of daily life, fireworks and so on. Now, we've got all of those things as a checklist, and people think that they just take the dog out and expose them to all of those things. Alright, it's not as simple as that. You'll get some puppies that really want to go up and say hi to people and other dogs, so super social dogs. So if we let those dogs go up and say hi to every single person and every single dog that they want to, regardless of whether the person or the dog wants to say hi back, that dog then learns to become overly friendly, and that's a problem in adolescence, especially when our dog is off lead. Okay, the flip side of that is our dogs who are on the less social side. Okay, so maybe a little bit more an introverted dog. I don't really want a lot of social contact with people and dogs that I don't know, so how can I happily exist in an environment with those? And we do that. Okay, so you've got extroverted people that like the company of others and get energy from spending time with other people, and then more introverted people like myself, who, while we like the conversation and company with others, we're happy in our own space as well. Okay, so we've got all those things going on. So proper socialisation. So that was a good one that came up. Another good one that came up was be more patient. Alright, be more patient with your puppy or with your dog. I get asked, somebody on another thread today had said they've been working with it was a Romanian rescue dog. So in the UK we get a lot of dogs brought in from Eastern Europe. So Romania is the main one. We get them from Cyprus and Spain, and although they're not Eastern Europe, a lot. The Bosnia and Croatia, we get some dogs from there as well. Okay, and occasionally dogs from the Czech Republic. So these dogs are strays, and charities then take these dogs either from strays or from municipal pounds in these countries and bring them over here for a better life. Okay, and I'll probably talk about this in another episode as well, because there's a lot in this. So they'd asked that they'd had a Romanian dog, and the dog was still reactive to people and dogs. And do they just have to lump it that that's how their dog is, or can they make improvements? So that, be more patient. The dog might not be on the same timeline as we are, okay, and very often they're not. So my dog, when I got him, I've spoken a lot about him, I use him as an example a lot. Logan's timeline was entirely different from mine, okay, and if I'm expecting him, if I have expectations that he's going to perform in a certain way, or going to behave in a certain way, and he doesn't, then frustration builds in me because I'm not getting the behaviours that I am expecting, okay, and then that can lead to some conflict. So just slow down with your dog, okay. I always think it's better to lots of observation to get to know your dog, and then lots of critical analysis and thought, mindfulness on how to train your dog and what do we need to do. So think of the times of your week where you're actually interacting with your dog one-to-one. So Logan is quietly snoring on the bed behind me. So are we interacting? Yeah, he's in the same room as me. Is it proper active interaction? In fact, I'm going to see if we can hear him snoring. Okay, hang on a second. He just stopped and I put the microphone towards him, so he's just kind of snoring softly there. Yeah, so although he's in the room with me, likes being in the room with me even when I'm working, you know, he'll come in and chill out, fall asleep, he'll go into the living room, go into the balcony. He's free to come in and out, but he likes coming in here and just resting on the bed, and we're interacting, okay, but it's not, I'm not doing any active training, I'm not petting him or whatever, okay. So think of the amount of time that you're actually spending with your, actively interacting with your dog rather than passively interacting with them. I know that sounds like a bit of a contradiction. Think of those things, and then think of the times that you're not doing that, and that gives us time to think and contemplate and make notes and observe, and maybe even watch the videos that you've used when you've been training your dog, and go, I can improve that there and I can improve that there, okay. So a few things there, alright. Next one that came up, was to avoid alpha trainers. Okay, that's a fairly no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Alpha trainers, people that use dominance-based training models, which are usually almost always, in fact, very rarely not. In fact, can't even think of an example where they're not heavily based on aversive training. Okay, so yeah. Few things there, okay, yeah, absolutely, avoid alpha trainers. Lots of stuff that has come up about over-socialisation, okay, over or under-socialisation, which I've covered, okay. Now this is an interesting one, okay. Keep training after the initial obedience class, okay. Person's also said that lasers are bad, so take it as laser pointers and getting the dog chasing laser pointers. I would agree with that entirely. Don't play with a laser pointer with your dog, and the reason for that is the dog has now got something to chase but not catch, okay, and that can be incredibly frustrating. What it also does with some dogs is it can start getting them chasing shadows and reflections, okay, so because they're so used to chasing something which moves which they can't catch, and then they start chasing other things in the environment which they chase and they can't catch. It's fairly normal, okay. So people think that laser pointers are a good idea for their dogs, and I would say they're absolutely not. And if you use a laser pointer with your dog, there are other ways that and your dog enjoys it and you don't get these issues, there's other ways that you can give the dog the same outlet without the fallout, okay, or the potential for the fallout, okay. So the first point there, keep training after the initial obedience class. I'm going to assume, okay, that they're talking about after the initial batch of training, the 6-week class, okay, rather than actual obedience. I'll cover some stuff on that in a little while. Lots of people think that that's the dog trained, okay. Take the dog at 12, 14, 16 weeks to puppy class for 6 weeks, so the dog's now 4 or 5 months when they finish, and that's the dog trained. And that would be akin to saying you put your child in nursery or kindergarten at 3, 4, 5 years old, and then, yeah, cool, that's it, done for life. Okay, nope, sorry, it doesn't work like that. I am 51 years old, still learning loads, okay, and will continue to keep learning loads. I'm not only learning other interesting things, like how to use this microphone so that I don't have to, so that I can pause it and then cough and come back to it. So those are just kind of things to learn, okay. I've bought a new microphone for my phone, okay, a remote microphone or a Bluetooth microphone, so I have to learn how to use that. So I've got my own hobbies, so I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as I've said, and I like to read, always learning new things, but also life skills, okay, your emotional skills, how to deal with your emotions and how to deal with the impact of life on your emotions, okay. So yeah, absolutely keep training after your initial batch of classes. This one's really, really lovely, okay. Be more kind, patient and compassionate to the pups, and the more they show the other qualities to others and myself. Okay, so I think the person's basically saying that they're seeing the dogs showing those attributes towards them, and can we reflect them? Okay, that's really, really nice. Okay, really lovely. Okay, next one. The off-lead dog park can be dangerous and unnecessary for socialisation. After being attacked there, my dog became reactive to any new dog running up to her. Okay, now this is a super interesting one, okay, and a lot of this is dependent on where you are. I think I talked about it in the off-lead one, which is a couple of episodes ago. My thoughts on getting your dog off-lead and building a good recall. In the US, certainly in the cities, we've visited San Diego in 2012, was the first time I was there. Now, there's this massive park, Balboa Park, which is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's a stunning park, absolutely stunning. And they've got this tiny off-lead dog area in this amazing park. Now in the UK, a park like that, you could have your dog off-lead if your dog is able to have a good recall and be sociable around people and dogs. Okay, so there's a massive difference there. Okay, I know in Central Park, as much as I know, I think it's up until, is it 6 AM, 9 AM? Okay, so between probably 11 PM and well, let's say it's 9 AM. I know that early in the morning you're allowed to have your dog off-lead in Central Park in New York. Okay, so these off-lead dog parks that people are saying, the fact that the person said off-leash suggests that they're in the US. I don't think they're a good idea. I genuinely don't. I don't think they're a good idea. That model is a good idea for people to take their dogs in. Lots of dogs running around. People come with us. The people that take their dogs in there. This is my experience, and I know that there's lots of different experiences in the world, but this is what I have seen, both in person and online. People come with their coffee, stand and chat while their dogs run riot around them. Okay, and we wouldn't have that model with children. We would have to intervene and give them instruction. Okay, so I would say that's a good idea. Avoid dog parks, depending on where you are. If you follow me on Facebook and YouTube and on Instagram, you'll see the park that I work in is an off-lead dog park, but most of the dogs there are really pretty exceptional. I know in Australia, a lot of the places they take them to the Oval, it's called, which is where they play cricket and football, Aussie rules football, and that seems to be more like the American model of an off-lead dog park. Okay, yeah, so lots to consider there. It's interesting these because with each of these points that come up, I could probably talk about them more than I am, but I'm just trying to cover as many as we can. Okay. This one's nice, to understand how often your puppy needs to be taken outside. My expectations were unfair to that pup. Okay, yeah, really nice observation. Puppies need to go to the toilet a lot. They've got a small bladder. Basically, after they've played, after they've slept, after they've eaten, and there's one more. eaten, drank, played, and slept. Okay, that's generally when your dog will need to go to the toilet. So that would be, so that's 6, 8, 10 episodes throughout the day where you would need to give your dog access to an outdoor toilet, plus another 3 or 4. Okay. Somebody else had said that understanding that if you, for the first week, if you know that you're going to have to get up during the night to take the dog out for the toilet, toilet training would have been significantly easier. And that was a nice point as well. Lots of stuff on understanding the dog's body language. Absolutely crucial. Just essential. Okay, understanding your dog's body language. Being able to start understanding. Imagine living with a being and them not understanding what you're trying to tell them because you don't speak the same language. That must be a horrible position to be in. And then what happens is you just stop behaving because you're not getting listened to, which goes back to the Peter Kay thing at the top of the hour. Okay, so lots of nice stuff with that. Okay, I didn't need to listen to the people who thought they knew everything. Advocating for your dog was nothing to be ashamed of. And they've said, okay, that's 2 things, but both important. Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, everybody has got an opinion on, and now almost everybody has an opinion on almost everything. Okay, few people. No, that's unfair. Okay, so making generalisations again. When was the last time you asked somebody's opinion on something and they said, I don't know enough about that to give an informed decision on it? Okay, we see this a lot in politics. We see it a lot. What do you think about that? I don't know anything about it. But because we've been asked our opinion on something, we think that we have to give it. Okay. So similar to dog training and dog rearing, just because you've had dogs, just because you have dogs for that amount of time, doesn't mean you're an expert. One of the things I say often is, you don't ask your hairdresser for advice on how to live your life and how to raise your children. So don't ask your groomer advice on how to raise your dog. You don't ask the midwife advice on how to raise your children, okay, or how to live your life. So please don't ask your breeder. Don't ask your breeder on how to raise a dog. And the fact that they've had your specific type of dog for 10, 20, 30, 40, 60 years, to be honest with you, does not. I could not care. Alright, I really couldn't. And some of the most damaging advice I have ever heard given to people has been given from breeders. And when I had 2 pedigree dogs before, so I had a Dog de Bordeaux and a Neapolitan Mastiff, and the amount of utter garbage, and I mean truly terrible advice I have heard has been from Neapolitan people and dealing with Neapolitan Mastiffs. I mean, just stuff from folklore and the Dark Ages and just made up nonsense, absolute garbage. Okay, yeah. So don't ask we don't ask our personal trainer advice on how to raise our kids, so don't ask your dog walker advice on how to train your dog either. Okay, unless they've already they've learned how to train a dog and learned from good sources. Okay, so yep, yeah, everybody's got an opinion. Not every opinion is valid. Okay, let's go through. Okay. I wish I knew obedience training is not solely about having your dog to sit on cue, it's about so much more. Okay, I think I've talked about this briefly. I'm only going to talk for another 5 minutes, guys, okay, so and you'll know better than I am how long this podcast lasts, because you can see the time on your phone. I think we need cultural changes, okay. So a cultural shift is progress is generally at a glacial pace, okay, slow, and then we have a major event, okay, so think of that with a glacier drifting, and then a massive piece of it cracks off and then sweeps down the valley and wipes out an entire population, okay, horrible example, but you get the point I'm making. We had it with slavery, Okay, so slavery was normal for such a long period of time, and accepted, not acceptable, certainly not acceptable to enslaved people. And there was then a sea change, okay, when it just, a massive change in the legislation, which led to a hopefully huge change in the attitudes towards keeping people as slaves. Women getting the vote, so it's 2024. I should really know this. I think, when was the suffragettes? 1920? 1919, 20, 21, something like that. So round about 100 years ago, women still didn't have the vote in democracies, and in the UK and the US. Okay, sea change. That's a sea change, cultural shift. I think we have to have a cultural shift from using the word obedience in relation to our dogs. Obedient means you will obey me. Okay, you will be obedient, an obedient child. And then a lot of the time, and so much of this is biblical. Okay, as the rod then comes out. Okay, sea change in our or a cultural shift in using the word obedience. I think in saying no, using the word no. Okay, using the word no and all that goes with that. I'm going to talk about this in future episodes. So you might be shouting at the radio just now, or shouting at your phone, or turning and disagreeing with me. Okay, just planting a seed with this one. Okay, and in the vast majority of cases, using a harness. Okay, instead of using something around your dog's neck. Okay, so can we have a cultural shift away from keeping an animal in place with pressure on their neck? Okay, so that's what I think that we need. Okay, that's my opinion. Now, I think I'm going to interpret what this person has said. Obedience training is not solely about having your dog sit on cue. It's about so much more. Yeah, building skills. Can you relax? Can you take a treat well enough? Can I recognise that you're getting upset, overwhelmed, overstimulated, over-aroused, and deal with that either by helping you calm down or removing you from the environment and giving you a drink of water and letting you cool off? Okay, so can you take a treat well? Can you play well with a toy to the dog, teaching the dog? Can you play well? Can you leave that toy? Can you bring it back and leave it be? And can we play cooperatively? So these are all skills rather than teaching sit stays and down stays. Okay, okay, let's do a couple more. I wish I'd known how important sleep and relaxation was. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, a hugely important skill for us to learn and teach, and I'll be doing more content on that. Somebody said, I wish I'd known what I know now. Yeah, we all do. Yeah, absolutely all do. Well, a lot of us do. Let's do one more. Socialisation, we've covered that. Okay. The calm and focus exercise. Somebody's, in fact, we've got two there. Two nice ones. Three. Let's go with that. Okay. Right. Teaching your dog to calmly focus on you. Okay. So one of the questions that I'll do with this is, I'm basically asking the dog how they feel by working through this focus game. Okay, and it's calm focus. Is are you able to pay attention to me? Are you able to give me your attention? Can you work with me? And then addressing the reasons why that's a yes or a no. Okay, and then building that. And I've found I work through this with all the dogs I work with. I'm going to put the link for that course on the show notes for this programme. It's called Bulletproof Focus. It is not expensive. I think just now it's about £13, which works about $16.50 US. So 13 English pounds, 13 British pounds. So not an expensive course, and I've had so many people say it's the best money they've ever spent. So I'll stick a link to that on that course. Okay. And I work through every dog I work with through that programme. Okay. Then we've got last two. Focus more on relationship based in trust. Okay. Now they've said rather than trying to rely on positive reinforcement. Okay. Now I'm going to do a wee bit of nitpicking on that. Okay. positive reinforcement. I think this person has, I think, and I don't know, I'm making, there is an assumption, and I'm actually going to ask them to expand on it. Positive reinforcement is what most relationships are built on. Okay, so what is trust? I've got a input on the anatomy of trust. In fact, this is it's really interesting to listen to. So Brené Brown, she's got a doctorate in social work. She has Daring Bravely, I think, is one of her podcasts, and Unlocking Us are the other two. Okay, or the other ones. She's got so one's on leadership and the other one is on living your life. Okay, and there's a really interesting podcast she did on the anatomy of trust. And you'll be able to find that wherever you get your podcasts. So the Anatomy of Trust by Brené Brown, and she goes through this model of what is trust, what is a trusting relationship, and a trusting relationship is giving the other what they need in that moment. And what is that if that is not positive reinforcement? Okay, now I'm making an assumption in what this person has said there. You know, is it not just about treats and playing with your dog? Okay, with a ball or a tug toy or giving treats for good behaviours? Okay, yeah, it's significantly more than that. Trust is significantly more than that, but positive reinforcement is significantly more than that. And there's a really interesting scene in The Big Bang Theory, where if you've watched it, you know the characters. So Sheldon is trying to positively reinforce Penny for using a voice which he finds more pleasant. Okay, so if she laughs in too high a pitched voice, he then models her by lowering his pitch. She then mirrors that, and then he says, "Would you like a piece of chocolate?" Okay, right. And Leonard, who's gone out with Penny, he then very, very quickly gets wise to this. So now it's a funny scene. Okay, not how positive reinforcement works. Okay, absolutely not. Okay, right. Lastly, someone has said that I'd prioritise my relationship with my dog and their emotional state and not felt pressured into training. And Nylith, which I'll talk about what that is, sits in giving a paw and other comparatively useless actions. Okay, so Nylith, nothing in life is free. Okay, and it's a deferment protocol. So basically they brought this in, and I don't know how old it is. It's certainly 25 years old, I think, maybe there or thereabouts. I can't even be bothered looking it up to see who first came up with this utter nonsense. Now, it was a step away from using a choke chain, okay, and a step towards where we are. So, yep, fair enough. In and of its time, it was, it was an improvement. But what now happens is nothing in life is free. So if the dog wants out for the toilet, they've got to sit at the door first or give a paw, okay? Because you're basically saying you don't get stuff on demand. You have to defer to me. If the dog wants petted, they have to sit first, or you ask for a paw or ask them to lie down. So you ask the dog to do something. Now, right. I'll be discreet as I can with this. So I worked with a client recently, and somebody who is a trainer or behaviour person who is well thought, works for one of the universities, okay, and this is who you would go to if you went to the university to get advice. So one of the universities do their own training, and I'm being cautious with this, okay, which you'll understand why. Okay, they do their own training program, and they charge for it. Okay, and this behaviour person had basically put this deferment protocol, or nothing in life is free protocol, before, just to settle an anxious dog. Okay, now this is the utter guff that the person that then had to do. So the client then walks towards the door, asks the dog to sit. Okay, the dog sits, and then the dog gets out to go to the toilet or go out for their walk. Okay, now you do this often enough, what will happen is the signal for the dog to sit is you approaching the door with the dog on a lead. So as you approach the door, the dog then sits, and you open the door. But apparently, according to this garbage, right, that dog is now jumping the gun and they're now trying to get one step ahead of you. Okay, it's just learning. It's just the rules of behaviour. Okay, it's like what the dog has just done there is when you put your car in gear, when you see the light for the cross traffic turning red, you're anticipating that your light is going to turn green. Okay, you're not trying to get one up on anybody else. You're just reading the environment for signals that this is now ready to go. It's called a cue transfer. Okay, so the old cue was asking the dog to sit, and the new cue, that asking the dog to sit at the door. Okay, approach the door, ask the dog to sit, the dog sits. Approach the dog to sit. Approach the door, ask the dog to sit, the dog sits. You do this over and over and over again, and the dog starts becoming smart and going, cool, I'll just sit down because that's what you're going to ask me to do. It's just learning. It's just learning. Jesus, right? Sorry, right? So what you've got to do now is, because the dog's now jumping the gun and trying to get one over on you, apparently, is you've got to ask the dog to do something else. So you ask for a hand touch, okay, or ask the dog to give a paw. Now you do this often enough, and what happens is the dog now sits and then gives you a paw before being asked, okay, and before you know it, you're doing 10 different behaviours before you can even get out the door when the dog just needs a toilet. It's just garbage. I mean, it's truly nonsense. Rubbish. It's just rubbish, right? So that's a really good, a good point that person's made there, okay. Okay, so I could go on. Alright, let's see how long we've got. We've been on for 40 minutes, okay, so yes, I'm absolutely calling it here. Much love to you for joining me again. If you've got any feedback at all on my podcast, email me info@glasgowdogtrainer.co.uk. You can contact me through my socials, message me through Facebook or Instagram as well. You can message through YouTube, I just don't check them very often, so Facebook, Instagram or email is the best way to get. Always looking for new content ideas for the podcast, there's longer form ones like I'm doing here. So I would never have done a 40-minute video because nobody would have sat and listened to me or watched me for 40 minutes. But you can listen to me while you're on your commute or doing your housework or whatever, okay. Alright, so catch you next time guys, much love to you.